Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Null, aka John here from Retro Null. Thank you guys so much for clicking on the video, taking a look. Today, we're going to be talking about my video game collecting tips. These are going to be just some basic tips and tricks. And yeah, welcome to another episode of Pixel Patrol, a video game collecting podcast. Let's get right into it. Let's cut the crap and get right into it. So, let's talk about what I've been playing, how I've been, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I've been doing, good. And yeah, I mean, we're just me and my fiance are planning a wedding right now, so it's just been kind of busy. But still getting my game time in there, and we're still just hanging out. Nothing really crazy's been going down. Just I'm gonna have to work a lot of hours here soon, so I'm trying to keep up on the videos, not let that fall behind. But in terms of life, I'm doing pretty okay. Next, when it comes to like video games and what I've been playing and pickups and stuff, I don't really have any pickups. I really haven't bought anything since I don't know, a while ago. It's been a minute. I've been really slowing down because, like I said, I got a wedding cutting coming up, so all my money's kind of going towards that. So not really splurging on any games. I did pick up Elix for the PS4, which is like a cheap game I got for like $5 from my local game store, retro game store, and yeah, I mean that's about it. If you don't know what Elex is, it's spelled ELEX, and it's kind of like not it's a open world RPG, but it's not like a high budget one. But many people are kind of mixed on it. It's considered good by a lot of people. It's considered bad by a lot of people. I want to try it because I really love RPGs, and it's kind of about this like planet that got hit with this meteor or something, and there's like this material called Elix that starts getting produced, and yeah, I'm not exactly sure on it, but it's what's cool about it is that it's like a mix of like medieval and space stuff, and it just looks really interesting. Like the cover has a guy with like a sword on it, and then it cuts like it's split in half, and the other side has the same guy with like space armor on him. So it looks pretty sweet. Also, side note, I'm congested, so if you hear me sniffling and you know, you can hear my voice is different. Also, I changed the audio stuff a bit to make the mic better, but I will still be having the sniffles, so I'm sorry in advance. But yeah. Anyways, let's get on to the video games I'm playing. I'm currently playing Street Fighter 6. I've been in the lab. I've been grinding Street Fighter 6, just playing Luke. I'm waiting for Akuma to drop, so I'm just kind of grinding Luke because I think he's super fun, super new feeling. I secondary Ryu right now. I don't really play Ryu that much. I played Ryu like in every game, so just kind of trying to it's the next generation of Street Fighters, so just trying somebody new. But I've been learning combos and really like studying and like learning how fighting games work because I played Smash Bros competitively, and the way that game worked compared to this, and like just the mechanics and how combos work and the thought process behind neutral, like the neutral game, and all of that is very different from Smash Brothers. So trying to learn that has been hard, but I've recently started greatly improving, and it feels really good. It's that fighting game mentality. It's that discipline. Stick to it even if you lose over and over and over and over again, and eventually you'll get better. So, been playing that. I've also been playing the new Fortnite season. I haven't really been playing as much as I should be. I've missed probably like about a week now, but I just been busy, and Street Fighter 6 had their little fighter pass that I wanted to grind out and get done. So that gave me like a good excuse to like practice the game every day. So I was doing that, but I plan on going back to Fortnite. I should be able to catch up real easy. So not too pressed about that. And then finally, I'm still playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Still kicking away at that game. I'm at like 65 or 70 hours now. It's really fun. It's still really good. I still think it's one of the greatest games ever made. I still think it's a modern masterpiece. My opinion hasn't really changed. I was originally going to try to 100% it, but I'm not going to do. It's just not achievable for me, and I feel like it would ruin the experience for me trying to do that. I don't like. I like the little Korok missions in the sense that I like them as a fun little thing to do in between landmarks or objectives, right? Like if I'm walking from one shrine to another shrine I saw in the distance, I like doing the Korok missions as a way to do like just something to do in between. It makes exploring more fun, but you know, finding 1,000 of them does not seem fun. That seems like a tedious, you know, it just seems like a lot of effort and it seems extremely tedious for no reason. And in reality, like finding them all, yeah, cool. I don't know in this game if it gives you something special. I'll probably research it afterwards. But in the last game, in Breath of the Wild, finding 999 Korok seeds didn't do anything. So I have no real interest in finding it. I will be doing all the shrines because I heard you get something special if you do every single shrine. And I'm gonna do every single main mission because there's a secret ending to Zelda. I've not been spoiled. I'm lucky to say that yeah, I have not been spoiled yet, which is awesome. But I am working really hard on just I'm working hard at it. It's not like actively avoiding it. Like if I see the spoiler warning, I click away. So I did do research because some games have secret endings and some don't. So I just want to know if there was one, what the true or secret ending was, and to achieve the secret ending or the true ending, you need to complete every main mission but two before you fight the final boss. So I'm just working on that. I think I'm pretty close. I have one more temple to do because I wanted to explore the rest of the map by myself, like without cheats or help or anything, and find all the shrines I possibly could, and then do the final temple. So I'm heading to the Zora domain to do the final temple. I'm excited about it. It's gonna be fun. And then I'm on the way to the end of the game. So I think, once I do this final temple, I'll probably, you know, cheat and look up all the rest of the shrines that I didn't find. And once I do that and I get the final the final thing, I don't know what it is. I heard it's like an armor or something for the shrines, but if it is, cool. I'm going to try to get the final thing, the final reward for completing every single shrine. And then once I do that, uh probably go into another game, probably try to beat Dragon Ball Kakarot or whatever. So that's the plan right now. I'm excited for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I have had super fun time with it. I think it's got one of the most intriguing stories to a Zelda game, at least in a long, long time. And I am really enjoying it. There was a lot of things I did not expect for Nintendo to do that they did, and I think that's really cool. So let's get into my video game collecting tips. So I just want to say these are my tips based off my experiences game collecting. Obviously, some of these might not carry over for everybody, and it might be different depending on what state or which region you collect in. Um, so these are just general video game collecting tips. I also want to state that I have been video game collecting since 2016, 2015, right? So I wasn't around for the early days of video game collecting. So these are more of like modern tips for video game collecting. I've watched Metal Jesus video game tip collecting videos in the past, and I saw he uploaded one for 2021. I haven't watched it yet, but these are my general tips for nowadays collecting. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it because I am I wouldn't say a major collector like Metal Jesus or some of these other collectors like CJR and other guys. I just collect casually. Well, not even casually. I hunt and I do research and I keep my eye on prices, but I'm not like I just don't have the expendable income to constantly be buying video games all of the time. So I collect when I can, and we're gonna kind of talk about that later as one of the tips. But for me, it's I have to budget the collecting. I can't just go out and spend the money. So my collection, isn't that huge. It's not massive. I've been building it over years, and it's definitely a lot for the average person. But when we're looking at other YouTube creators that have large video game collections, mine is like not a fraction of what theirs is. My video game collection is like 352 games. which is big. I'm not going to deny that's a lot of video games, and I'm very lucky to own that amount of video games. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that, you know, Metal Jesus and a lot of these guys have a lot of experience because they've been doing it over years and years, and they have very large video game collections. So their tips and what, you know, they might recommend might be different than what I might recommend. But like I said in the beginning, it's also it varies based on where you're located, where you live, stuff like that. It can make it harder. Game collecting could be harder, stuff like that. So, anyways, let's get into the tips. And I think the first tip that's really important for people is to have a goal in mind. When I first started collecting, I just kind of started buying everything, and I do think that there is something to going to garage sales and buying things and seeing things that maybe you wouldn't normally buy, but the price is so just you know, it's too good to refuse and you just pick it up anyway. That's one thing. But I'm saying in terms of like if you're going to a gaming convention or you're going to your local game store to buy a game specifically, you know, just I think having goals in mind is important. Especially, you know, even in garage selling, having goals in mind is good too. You know, if my goal is to find super cool Nintendo games at a garage sale and I find like NHL whatever 2007, I'm not gonna want to buy that, even if it's like a Super Nintendo cart or whatever. Personally, because that's not my goal. That's not what I want. But for some people, it might be. You know, it's all about having goals in mind, knowing what you want to collect for. You know, collecting for your favorite system or your favorite series. One of my big goals when I first started collecting was to get every single Nintendo handheld, and I pretty much have them. I would like to get another Game Boy Micro because mine's kind of like, you know, rough. Me and my dad had to like fix it. I got it for very cheap. I got it from a friend for like $10. But me and my dad had to fix it, and well, I asked my dad to fix it because he's more knowledgeable than I am, and we basically couldn't. And he called me and he was like, "Look, this thing's not gonna ever work unless we drill in the side of it and kind of fix it that way." And so we did that. He did that, fixed it for me. You know, so there's like little drill marks in it, but I mean, I would rather have it working than just be a dead paperweight. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I'm grateful and I appreciate that he did that for me. He didn't have to do that. It's just kind of that's the one I would like to get again, just to get like a super duper minty one. But I play on my micro. It works. I'm glad that it works. It's cool to experience that. But just getting kind of like a minty one, more specifically the Famicom Special Edition one would be awesome. But you know, uh, that was my goal was all the Nintendo handhelds. I wanted to buy and collect every single one because I really grew up on the Nintendo handhelds, you know, especially if you're a part of my generation. I was born in 1998. So, you know, if you have that, if you're from that time period, you know, you grew up on the GBA, the Nintendo DS, and Nintendo 3DS, the DSi, all that stuff. And those were mainly how we played games, you know, because like we would go on road trips and you play them, or I have memories of like my dad watching football and I'm just like sitting there playing on my DS, you know. So because I don't care for sports, so. But yeah, you know. So anyways, handhelds played a big part of my life, and that was one of my main goals at the beginning. Was I just want every Nintendo handheld. I don't want necessarily the different variations. Like I just want a 3DS. I don't care if it's a 3DS XL. I just want a 3DS. Nowadays, you know, I think it would be cool to kind of diverge into those lanes, but my focuses and my goals have also changed as I've gotten older and I've been collecting for longer. So, you know, I'm pretty content with my handheld collection. I think at some point I would like to focus in on that and hone in on that again, but I've realized, you know, because I didn't have a goal in other ways that my collection kind of fell apart in terms of focus, right? So I got really into handhelds, and that was what I was passionate about when I first started. And I bought every single Nintendo handheld, and then it started, you know, divulging into other handhelds. And I still have a high interest in other handhelds. My fiance got me an Atari Lynx for a gift for my birthday or Christmas, and then I found a Sega Game Gear, a blue one, at a shop for like $20, and I got to pick that up with a charging cable for it and everything, like a power cable. And I also have PSP, PS Vita, stuff like that. These different systems and stuff like that for handhelds. And I was really focusing in on that, and I was building a pretty good diverse collection. And then my goals kind of stopped. I stopped having goals. I just cared about getting all these amazing games that everybody talked about. And I think there's something about if I were have to stay focused or maybe change my focus instead of like buying a PSP game over here and then buying an NES game here and then buying a PS3 game here and stuff like that. If I would have just focused in on the handheld collection, I think it would have made hunting, you know, a little better, and it would have given me goals. But it's also, you're collecting, you should do what you want to do. It's definitely a hard topic, but I think having a general goal is what I'm trying to say. If I would have had a general goal of like, okay, I want to focus on handhelds, and handhelds are still something I'm passionate about. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm forcing myself to be passionate about it. I just lost sight of it and kind of just got overwhelmed by everything. And if I would have honed in on that focus and been like, okay, I'm passionate about this. If I collect this and then I also pick up maybe like certain classics and that was my goal, then, I could have bought, you know, DS games and DSs and Vitas and stuff. And then also bought like I don't have Super Mario Bros. 3, right? Like that's something I regret. And I wish I would have had that goal in mind going back before it got super expensive. I wish I would have, went and got some of these classic games that I wasn't focused on at the time. Uh, but I didn't. So it's all about just having goals, right? Because when you fall apart and you start collecting random stuff, you're spending more money. You're not necessarily collecting the stuff you want to collect, and it can just become overwhelming. So kind of keeping in your goals. I will say the only exception to the rule is garage sailing, right? So having a goal in mind when you're going garage sailing is kind of hard. I think garage sailing is the type of environment where if you find something video game related and you're interested in it, pick it up. If it's cheap, pick it up, no matter what it is. Even if it's not necessarily something you're focused on and you have in mind as a goal, I think that's the exception to the rule. But yeah, so having a goal in mind, collecting for your favorite system or your favorite series, I think that's something like one of my future goals is to buy all the Xenoblade Chronicle games because I have Xenoblade X and Xenoblade 3 and I don't have 1 or 2. So having that series done and being able to play them all, that's a goal for me in the future to achieve. Another goal that I have is collecting all the physical console copies of Valve games. It's something that's really interesting, and if you guys do research in it, it's really cool to look into because Valve has, they made Steam, etc., and they're known for this digital marketplace, but they also put games physically on consoles back in the day. So you can find, like Left 4 Dead 2 on console. Those are pretty common ones, Portal 2 and stuff like that. But there's stuff like the Orange Box, for instance. The Orange Box does not the orange box is the only way to physically be able to play TF2, which I don't know if you can play. You probably can mod it with like a custom server on your IP or play like locally or something like that, like have like a LAN thing going for it. But it was the only way to play Team Fortress 2 and Portal 1 physically on console. That's it. So it's really interesting history there. There's also Half-Life. The original Half-Life came out on the PS2. So, it wasn't just PC. So if you want a physical console way to play the original Half-Life, that's the only way to do it. So that's a goal of mine, and I have most of the Valve stuff. I need a better copy of Left 4 Dead 2 because mine's kind of beat up. And then I need a Half-Life 1, and I think that's about it. I mean, there's probably a couple I'm missing. I have Portal 2. I have 2 copies of it because I have one on Xbox, one on PS3. So I do, I'm pretty close to achieving that goal. And I had another goal in mind of collecting Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, right? Those are 2 of the big heavy hitter GameCube games that everybody wants, right? And I had them growing up. They're super nostalgic for me, even though I know they're not the best Pokemon games. So I've always had in my periphery, like, trying to get these games in my collection. That was always one of my major goals. and recently I was able to make that goal happen recently. I was holding on to a bunch of games I didn't want that I was never going to play that were just sitting in my game collection because I got a good deal on them. And I was just kind of like, well, what if I sell these for high value because they were high value games, and you know, just sell them and get the game I want. And that's what's awesome about video game collecting as well, is I was able to use these games that I got from like a market Facebook marketplace deal years ago. I've been holding on to them for years, and I sold them for a high price for these games that I wanted. And it was really cool, you know. And yes, I traded more games than what I had, but or what I got back, right? Like I traded, sorry about that. I traded 5 games for one. And then I got Pokemon XD I got for free from a friend, which is something we're going to talk about in the future. But um Pokemon Coliseum is what I traded in for, and it was a way for me to get the game and utilize other resources, right? So having that goal in mind of saying like these are my holy grail items, I'm going to focus on these, was it allowed me to acquire them through other means, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. I know I kind of went on a long rant about it, but I think it's important to have some sort of goal in mind. Don't just go into a game store and be like, I want that game for the Xbox 360, I want that game for the PS4, I want that game for the Super Nintendo, I want this game. Because what it does is it kind of slows down the rate at which you can collect the things you do want, and it just kind of creates confusion. You know what I'm saying? Also, it's your money, do whatever you want. I'm just giving you a tip. But that's what I would think. Next thing I would say is when it comes to planning and budgeting video games and buying video games, right? I work a 40-hour job. I work 40 hours a week. I have a 9 to 5, right? So I can't just go out and use YouTube money for video games yet. In the future, you know, if this channel does well and I can get funds from this channel, I will probably use the funds to fund my gaming stuff so I can make more videos, right? That's kind of the goal, ultimate goal, right? But as of right now, I spend my own money on everything, which is fine. This is a passion thing for me. But what I'm trying to say is I can't just do it willy nilly, right? I can't just go out and buy games, right? And I think a lot of times these YouTube channels go out and they buy games and they do all these garage sales, and we kind of are like, oh, I should do that too. I should do that too. And doing garage sales and going video game hunting is fine, but the difference is, right, is that when these guys are able to walk in and buy games, right, it's because they have the means and the funds to do so. So, you know, they aren't putting themselves in a position by doing so. And I think that that's important, right? Because I think companies and stores will try to give us, you know, FOMO and make us feel like we have to put ourselves in positions to do that stuff. And when I was younger, I would put myself in a bad financial position because I really wanted this new game, or I really wanted to buy this old retro game that's really hard to find because who knows if I'll ever see it again, right? So just budgeting and saving for big games, or saving a large amount to get a bunch of cheaper games, and just kind of knowing, I think, is important. You know what I mean? Because I think by not properly budgeting and planning, it can also implode the hobby. Like I'm saying, like I said, this is just a tip. It's your money, do whatever you want, but that's just my recommendation, right? Because if it were me, and when I was not properly budgeting, I became sort of irritated with the hobby because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to in terms of money, right? I was putting myself in a bad financial spot, which then created like buyer's remorse and all this stuff because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to. And this was back when I was like 17, 18. Now I'm older and I understand this stuff, and I'll skip out on things because I need to properly budget. But just don't make the hobby a burden, you know what I'm saying, financially. Just make it, if you have a partner, talk with your partner, stuff like that. Just kind of budget, make sure you're good to go. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to go to a retro gaming convention, save up a large sum of money before you go to be like, this is my video game money, and when it runs out for the weekend, I'm done. You know? But it's your life. I'm just giving you my advice. Please don't take it bad. I'm not trying to be rude about it. I'm just trying to give my genuine advice because, there are certain things that it's a strain on the hobby, right? The financial part is a negative part of the hobby, and just being able to properly plan around that will make the hobby more fun. So, next up, make connections. I think making connections is really important. I think making connections makes the hobby way more fun, and I think that it makes the hobby kind of worth doing. Like having connections and knowing people. I don't know as much people, and I'm not as active in the community as I probably should be. I think I have a partner. I work full time, right? So this is kind of my way to interact and do the hobby, these podcasts and my videos. But in terms of like my local retro game community, I'm not a massive part of it. So I do think it's important to make friends, join Facebook groups, stuff like that, talk video games with people, and form relationships so people can kind of know what you're into and they can hook you up if they're able to, you know what I mean? Like if some guy's like, "Oh, I know, blah blah blah. I was looking for a Pokemon Emerald. I just found it." I can text him and let him know, or I can pick it up for him. He can pay me back, or I have a copy I don't want anymore and I'm willing to sell it for cheap, or something like that, right? So just having meeting friends and doing stuff that way is a good way to increase your chances of finding and getting the stuff that you want. I think telling your friends and family is really important, right? So I told one of my family members that I am a video game collector and stuff like that. Well, they were going to get rid of a console. It was a handheld, and they were going to get rid of a handheld console, and they knew that I would want it, so they set it aside for me um, during like a spring cleaning thing, and they gave it to me and with all the games. Like, here you go. I was just gonna donate this, but I remembered you like to collect, so here you go. And bam, I have a copy, a DS and some games. And that was really nice of them. They didn't have to do that, but they thought of me because they know I'm passionate about this. And here we are. And I have this DS and these games, right? So stuff like that, stuff like that happens all the time. I have friends that like talking to coworkers is another thing. Like mention it casually to people that you're in conversation with, or coworkers. Like my coworkers at my job know that I collect video games, and I'll have people show me stuff or be like, "Oh, my cousin's getting rid of this, blah blah blah." You know what I mean? A lot of times they want insane, asinine prices for mediocre collections or damaged stuff. So not all the time it works out, but what if in the 1 in 1 million time this guy's like, "Yeah, my grandpa's getting rid of all his game collection, for free. He just wants to get rid of it. Do you want it?" Right? So that's kind of, just putting the word out there. You never know what'll happen, right? And telling your friends is important too. Like my buddy Zach, right? He got his childhood GameCube back, and he was just like, "Oh, I have this copy of Pokemon XD. Do I know you said you really want. We were looking for it. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, man. Like, let me know. I'll buy it off you. Just let me know what the price is." And he was like, "Oh, I'll probably just give you a good deal. You know, you're my friend. Blah blah blah." Right? And then we meet and we're hanging out, and he just gave it to me, and I offered to pay. I paid for lunch that evening to make up for it. But yeah, he's my friend. He didn't have to do that, and he did that because he was being nice, and he's my friend, right? And he could have just been like, "Oh, I want $100," and I probably would have just given it to him, right? But he was just being nice, and I think having that relationship, even not everybody's gonna give you every game for free. He was really nice to me and gifted me something that was really great and amazing that I didn't deserve, right? But he didn't have to do that. He just did it. And even if he would have asked for $100 or $150, right? Just him doing that and that gesture was incredibly appreciative. And even if I would have had to pay for it, that opportunity would have only arisen because I talked to him about it and because we had that conversation. And if I never would have mentioned anything, he may have just given it to somebody else or sold it somewhere or whatever, right? So I think just having saying that and talking to people and creating relationships with people is important. Even your local game store staff, right? Like your local retro game store, I'm friendly with the people that work there. I have relationships with the people that work at my GameStop, even. Like having these friendships and these nice conversations are kind of how people build relationships, you know what I mean? Like, and people will help you out if you're just being cool and nice and stuff like that. Like I genuinely care how the GameStop lady and the GameStop guy is doing. And I want them to, I ask them how they're doing, how's their day, blah, 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 right? And then if something arises, they kind of hook me up or they'll give me a heads up or help me out in certain ways. Just building natural friendships with people just helps in the long run when it comes to achieving your goals, right? And if this GameStop guy would ask me, "Hey, can you keep an eye out for this Xbox 360 game or something, I would, because I'm building a relationship with that guy and he's really, he's super cool. So it's just stuff like that, you know what I mean? Just make sure to build meaningful relationships within the hobby, because then everybody can just kind of help each other out. And it really, makes the hobby fun, and it increases everyone's chances of like the thrill of the hunt, right? It increases the thrill of the hunt and it increases everybody's chances of finding that thing that they're looking for. So, doing that I think is important. I think finding a retro video game store, I think finding a retro video game store that's good is important. I think finding a good store with great prices that you can trust, I think is super important, and I think that it helps elevate the collecting experience to a whole nother level. And this is where the location bit kind of comes in, because if you don't have a good local game store scene or a local collecting community, it's hard to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's hard to, just it's hard to collect and have build relationships and stuff like that when there's just no local scene, right? And a local retro game store is where you would kind of introduce and have that local scene. I have a good local retro game store that I go to consistently, and they kind of know who I am there, right? So being able to go there and buy games and talk to these guys, right? Like, is good. It's good, and I go there all the time, and they have great prices, right? So that's kind of the goal and what you want to do. And I know that it's the restriction on that is location based and stuff like that, but so that's just that tip. I just recommend finding a good store with great prices that you can trust if you can. I've had negative experiences in retro video game stores. There's a local retro video game store 30 minutes away from me that charges insanely asinine amount of money for games, way overpriced. Like, I'm talking on average, they charge 50% more than what it's running for. So, in their store, they can do that, right? But the thing is that they're shady about it. On average, they open new video games, right? So, you know how there's the new video game, there's new video games come in that cellophane wrapping, just the seal, they're sealed. Well, they open every new video game they have and put it on the shelf without the seal. And I asked them about this and I said, why do you guys do this? And they're like, to match everything else on the shelf. But when you do that, it becomes impossible to tell what's new or what's used, right? I could open up a brand new game, put it on the shelf, and, say it's new, right? But I could also get a used copy of the same game, put it on the shelf with next to the other one, and say it's brand new, because there's no way to tell. There's no way to differentiate. And at that point, that's just lying to customers, right? So I started looking around the store and I'm like, these guys could just buy a game, say label it brand new, and just be like, well, we open every game. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was looking around and I was looking through Wii games, right? And I found it said brand new. The game was brand new, right? Just a brand new Wii game. Just broke the seal on it, right? They must have broke the seal or got a sealed copy, opened it, and put it on the shelf, right? A Wii game in 2020, right? No, it was labeled brand new. It had a brand new sealed asking price on it, but it had dog bite marks on the top right corner of the game case. And it's just like, this is obviously like fraud. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is obviously, if unacceptable. And I would never go back to the video game store. It's already overpriced as it is. And then they're lying about whether their games are brand new or sealed or not is unacceptable. So I will never go back to that video game store. I've never given them my business again. You know what I mean? Because they'll lie about stuff like that, so they become untrustworthy. And I think that that's important. Know whether these stores are trustworthy and good people, and whether they're not, and bring your business to the store that makes sense for you. Next, I've seen a lot of debate about this online and in comment section of different videos, and I think it's important still. I do think that garage sales are still worth doing. A lot of people are saying that it's not, and I think that they are. I think that you just have to do a little bit more work now. You got to do research on your local sales beforehand, maybe the day before. If there's a local garage sailing Facebook group, you know what I mean? Do research, know what's going on. Know times for the different sales, and go early. If you can get to a garage sale 10 minutes early before anybody else is going to be there, most of the time, they're setting up or they're already set up and they're just kind of waiting for that time to tick around. And you could just be like, "Oh, is it okay if I, come up here and check everything out?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're the first people of the day, blah blah blah." And we did that. Me and my dad go garage sailing every year, and we did that last year. And we got a little early to this house that I knew had like video game memorabilia. I just wasn't sure if there was physical games. And we got there, and this lady was selling a DSi, a white DSi, for $10. She was selling that came with a case and a bunch of games in it for $10. The games weren't that great, but I mean, for $10, a new DSi and games, like, come on, that's a good deal. And there were a couple other games, and my dad picked up a Super Nintendo Mini for $7. $7 for a Super Nintendo Mini, right? Like, that's insane. That goes for like $90 right now. So, the garage sailing's still worth it. You can still find stuff. There were multiple other garage sales we found that day that had video game related merchandise and memorabilia and video games themselves. And we kind of made out like bandits that day because we got earlier, we knew where to go, we knew what houses to hit, right? So I'm just saying, like, keep that in mind. Garage sales are still worth it. You're not gonna hit the jackpot every time. You're not gonna find a Chrono Trigger for $5 every time, but I do think stuff like that is still possible, and I think it's worth your time. And so garage sales are awesome. You know what I mean? You never know what you're gonna find, and you can have cool experiences. We went to this one super rich neighborhood. Me, my brother, and my little brother and my dad were just garage sailing in a super rich neighborhood, and we found this house, and we're like, oh, okay, not really anything too crazy. And then this older lady comes out from the garage, and she's like, hey, we're making egg rolls for, you know, $1 per egg roll. Like, do you guys want some? And we're like, sure. And we gave her $6 so we could each get 2 egg rolls. And man, those garage egg rolls were some of the best egg rolls I ever had. They were so tasty, man. They were homemade fried egg rolls, like on the spot while we were just garage sailing in the middle of the suburb. Like, it was crazy. So I never thought in my life I would go on a garage sale and get a fresh egg roll, and it was tasty. It was good. So just you have these crazy experiences that you can talk about and find crazy things and have cool stories, even if you don't find a Chrono Trigger every single time. So I do think they're still worth it, and I do think it's something that you should not overlook. Um, I think the next thing I should talk about is keeping track and organizing your collection. I do this because I'll buy the same games twice if I don't. I think there's something fun about organizing and keeping track in an app or something. And, knowing what you have, what you don't have, the estimated value of stuff like that, so you can kind of keep an eye on and just be educated on what's going on. I use GameEye, GAMEYE. It's a free app on App Store and Android, and it's a super good app. I really love the just like the program itself. I love how the software works. I use it every single day, so I think that's something you should look into if you're looking at categorizing and organizing your collection, or if you want to know relative value. I think that's a good way to do that. But yeah, the main reason I organize and keep track is because I like seeing stuff like that, and I also will buy like the same games twice if I don't. And the final tip is to have fun. It's kind of dumb to say it, and I think it's probably cliche and everyone says it, but have fun video game collecting. It's a hobby at the end of the day. I see a lot of people get serious online and stressed out about certain things when at the end of the day, it's just a fun hobby. You know what I mean? Don't let it be a negative thing. Don't let it become overarching and encapsulate your life in a negative way. You know what I mean? This is supposed to help us have fun and have a good time and be something that we enjoy doing and we love talking about. Don't don't make it feel like a job. Don't make it feel like a negative experience. Have fun. You know what I mean? Like, I have goals and I have these things while collecting that I do, and I follow these tips and I have learned these over time. But, I also just like to have fun, and I'm not going to sit there and ruin my experience because, oh my God, I didn't find only handheld games today, right? So, just kind of having fun, just and experiencing the hobby is, I think, the biggest thing. And playing games, man, play your games. Play your games. Stop not playing them. Stop buying games and not playing them. Beat your back. Do whatever you want. I love collecting games. I have a massive backlog, but start trying to beat them. Play your games. That's a common joke in the community, is that all we do is we buy games and we don't beat them. Beat them. Beat the games, man. Like, play them. Because the whole point of what we're doing is trying to beat and play games, and it's for this love of this hobby. And what's the point of buying, collecting, if we're not playing, right? I do think there's something to say about the thrill of the hunt. I think that that's a big part of the hobby too. I love doing that. Sometimes I'll go game hunting for 2 weeks and I won't play a single game because I'm just in the I'm just hunting. I'm in the wild and I'm hunting and I'm trying to find these games, and that's the fun. So that's another cool aspect of this hobby, is that there is multiple ways to have fun. Playing the games that you found and you fought to get are fun. And going out and hunting for them and finally having that aha moment, like, I got it. That's a part of the fun of the hobby. So just have fun with it. Don't let it stress out. Don't let it stress you out. Stuff like that, I will say some of the things I will say something I did not talk about is online purchasing for video games. I very rarely do this unless it's brand new. I very rarely buy retro games online, so I'm not super educated about it, which is why I did not say anything about online purchasing. I tend to go to this local game store that I have, to purchase any retro video games, because the quality of what they put on their shelves and their warranties, and just kind of, knowing their process and having to deal with them in the past, I know that if I'm going to go to them and find something I want, they'll look out for me, and they'll keep it on tab for me, right? And I can trust that they're going to be giving me a quality product because I've had experience with them in the past. So I very rarely search online for video games. I'm not saying I never do it. There are times I do. I do buy games online. It's just very few and far between, and I don't want to give advice and tips on something I do not know about. So that's the only reason I did not mention online uh, purchasing for video games. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my video game collecting tips podcast episode. Next time, I'm thinking about doing what bothers me while game collecting, like video game pet peeves I have, what I look for when I'm collecting, like where my OCD comes in, and where I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not buying that. If there's a scuff on the case, I'm not buying it. Stuff like that. So if you guys are interested in that, please drop a comment. If you guys have anything that bothers you while video game collecting, please drop a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like. I really appreciate all the support you guys are leaving for the channel, on the main channel and the second channel. The second channel has just seen amazing amounts of support, and I really appreciate you guys going, out of your guys' way to liking and commenting on stuff. So thank you guys so much for everything. I'm going to try to continue to do this for as long as I can. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode of Pixel Patrol. Peace.